Joint sessions are a very useful part of the mediation day. I always say to parties that I manage the process, but I'm led by them. So I will advise on process aspects, including when I might think a joint session is useful. But I'll never push parties into having a joint session or a particular approach if they're uncomfortable in doing so. It's ultimately unproductive for parties to have discussions that they don't feel comfortable having. But I will explore with them what their reticence is and explain my reasons why I think it might be useful to see whether or not their concerns can be alleviated. Plenary sessions are nearly always helpful at the beginning of a mediation. And that's because there's something, I think, just human nature in being able to say hello and introduce yourselves to the people you're going to spend the rest of the day with in mediation, even if the rest of the day is in private session. It's also useful, I think, to say something about the intended approach that you will take to the mediation. There can be a skepticism at the beginning of a mediation, and just hearing directly from the other side sets the tone very well for the discussions and the negotiations to come. I don't think it's useful at this early stage to simply rehash what's already in the position statements or to use it as a rehearsal for opening statements in trial, but rather as a way to, as I say, set the tone for the discussions to come throughout the day. I do think it can be useful at points to have joint sessions where parties can have direct, sometimes very challenging and difficult conversations between them. Conflict inevitably involves emotions, and it can involve heightened tensions, and I think it's important that parties know that I won't prevent those sort of conversations taking place, and that I'm not concerned about that level of emotion being on display. Sometimes there can be a cathartic nature in getting something off one's chest that isn't necessarily a negotiation technique, but nonetheless it can be useful to shift something so that the negotiations that come after can be more productive. It's also important to keep coming back to the foundation of mediation, which is that I don't act as judge or arbiter. I am there to facilitate discussions between the parties to see whether there's an agreement that they want to reach. So I'm not directing or controlling the conversations, but I'm there to manage the process. And that's another reason why I think being open to joint sessions is a really useful approach in mediation.